So I used to do a lot of vacants, which I still do a lot of vacants, but I used to only primarily target vacants. And the way that I would target them is I looked at the driveway. Usually, if there's a crack in the driveway, you'll see grass growing out of it, or there's an actual seam of the driveway. And if you see that the grass is literally just growing all the way across and it has no dead pieces to the grass, that means that nobody's been driving in and out of the driveway. Well, I'm Dan Berovides. Some people might know me by Dan Buys Houses, and I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina market.
And tell us what does your real estate investing journey look like? How'd you get into it?
So, I would say back in 2018, I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he was talking about a contract assignment that he was doing for a building. And he was like, "Oh, well, I put this property under contract for like $500,000, and then I found a friend of mine that was interested in the building for $1 million, and I made $500,000." And I was like, "Wait a second, what did you just say?" And I was completely dumbfounded. I was like, "What do you mean you sold a contract to buy the property?" So I started digging into it. I saw some of the bigger names like Max Maxwell and a few other guys. And I was like, wow, this is like really interesting because I have always been passionate about real estate, but I never had any money. And I thought that, there was no way that I could get started with no money. And then I found wholesaling and I just dove into it. First year, I made $1,600, which was great. I was like, oh my gosh, it works. To be honest, it felt like I cashed $1 million check. But then the second year, I met my partner, and me and him, we started doing deals together, and we did about like 95,000 the first year, which was great because we had no idea what we were doing. And my strategy was just, let's just hit everybody in an entire area and see, who calls back, who talks to us. And then we started using DealMachine and completely changed everything.
Well, I'm excited. I'm glad that we've been a part of your journey. I want to know. I want to get into that too. But how did you end up meeting your partner, or even going into wanting a partner? I guess.
So I realized that this was way too much work for just me to do by myself. And I was like, there's got to be another way because there's no way that I'm going to be able to handle all this by myself. And even though I knew, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to split my profit with somebody. I knew that, okay, I might split my profit, but we might make more money together than we would alone. And it so happened that I had a property that I was having a hard time moving because I didn't have a big buyers list at the time. It was my second wholesale deal. And I put out bandit signs, and somebody went and took a picture of my bandit sign and put it in one of the local real estate Facebook groups. And the whole pole was littered with bandit signs everywhere. It had like 5 or 6 bandit signs on it. And the guy was just proving a point like, hey man, we're all out here together, working. And look how these guys didn't even tear off each other's bandit sign, and they just stuck them all on the same pole. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, that's my bandit sign that you took a picture of. And he's like, oh, awesome, man. Can I give you a call? I was like, sure. We got to talking, and I told him that I had a property right now that I needed a buyer for. And he's like, well, you know what? I got a friend of mine who's got a humongous list of buyers. I'm going to link him up with you, and maybe you guys can make something happen. So come to find out, it was actually my partner's first deal in real estate at all. So he did his first deal with me, and that's how we met each other. And then after that, we just kept in touch with each other, trying to, see like, how are we both doing with our journeys. And then one day I called him. I was like, look, man, I want to try an idea. I have no idea if it's going to work or not. Let's split everything 50-50, all the costs, all the profit. And if it works, great. Maybe we can make some money. If we decide to stay together, we can, or we can go our own ways. There's no obligations. And he said, okay.
And so you're still partners to this day?
Yeah, it's been actually, this month is 3 years. No, last month was 3 years that we've been partners.
Now, did you guys sign like a contract or anything like that, or like how did that go? Was it very formal or was it very informal?
It was super informal. It was just mostly based on trust. Like, hey man, if you mess me over or anything or steal money from me, I won't deal with you ever again. And I was like, yeah, same thing. We'll both trust each other 100% because he was a really, well, he still is a really cool person. And like you can truly see, like, even with the people that we work with, he's not trying to. Sorry, I got like a million phones ringing over here.
That's okay. You're a real estate investor. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, so he's not. He's a very good person, and like he comes off as a very good person. And even when we help people out, he has their best interests and not just only looking at how much money we can make profit.
Got it.
And I saw that and I was like, all right, I think I can trust him. And at first we just kind of did it like, hey, all our costs, we split it 50-50, all our profit 50-50. We were dividing the assignment fees into two different entities at the closing table. So we just kept going with it. And one day I was like, hey, man, let's just form an LLC, have a real business together, and let's just, make this grow even bigger than it is.
So how do you guys split up the responsibilities then? How did you guys decide that? Who does what?
So that was kind of hard at first because we didn't know how to split the responsibilities. So it was kind of like both of us were cold calling, both of us were following up, and he hated cold calling. I don't hate it as much. I actually enjoy it. So as I guess time went on and our strengths started to show, he started focusing more on being able to close people. And even though I also focused on that as well, I focused more on the marketing side because that's where his weakness was.
Got it.
Um, so I was like, okay, I'll take care of marketing. You take care of closing these people, and we can work with each other to find deals and just split the responsibilities that way.
So do you both do driving for dollars then?
So he'll go driving. It isn't as intense as like I do it, but like if he goes out, he'll grab a couple hundred properties. If he's in the area and he sees that I haven't driven it, he'll drive it. But I'm the one that usually goes out and I go on a rampage and grab like 700 properties, 800 properties in a day.
Okay, let's just dive right into that one. So how are you adding 700 to 800 properties a day?
So my style, I guess, of driving for dollars is not how you would want to use DealMachine. Or actually, I should rephrase that. It's not the typical style that you would use DealMachine for. So before I did all this, about 8, 9, actually, I can't believe it's been 8 years ago. I used to work for a company that did all the inspections for all the foreclosures for Wells Fargo,
Wow.
Chase, Bank of America. So they trained us on how to identify whether a property was vacant or distressed. So that way we can actually upload that information to the banks. So I guess I used those skills that I learned to identify distressed and vacant homes and to see if they were occupied or not. And so what I do is I just drive and I drive fast. I use tap to add. And so when I just find a property, I'll match the address on DealMachine. I'll just tap on it and just keep going. And I'll go down the whole street, go street by street, and in about a like 8, 9 hour day, I'll have 700 to 800 properties. And even if like from far I can see like there's a few homes that are distressed, I'll add all the homes that I can see from a distance. And then vacant land, if I see an area has a bunch of vacant land, I'll just take all the vacant land down.
Okay, so that's so interesting that you were already like pre-trained to look for all of this stuff.
Yes.
What is are there anything that you feel like isn't talked about much in the space right now when it comes to just stress that people don't really think about when they look at a house that you see it and you're like, "Oh, red flag." Like this is something, or is it the basic like
So you can look at the basics, like, your ordinary paint's chipping, roof looks distressed. And I haven't had much success in the whole distress roof game. I've seen some distressed roofs, but I haven't had any real success in finding people that are really motivated. Because like the house will look nice, but the roof looks like it needs to be done.
Got it.
But if so, I used to do a lot of vacants, which I still do a lot of vacants, but I used to only primarily target vacants. And the way that I would target them is I looked at the driveway. Usually, if there's a crack in the driveway, you'll see grass growing out of it, or there's an actual seam of the driveway. And if you see that the grass is literally just growing all the way across, and it has no dead pieces to the grass, that means that nobody's been driving in and out of the driveway. So that was something that I learned from the banks, that they would tell you to identify that, look for tire tracks. It's almost like you're hunting for for people to see if anybody's inhabiting the place. And that's one of the things that I think one of the biggest successes I've had in identifying vacant properties.
That's a good one. I actually, not a lot of people talk about that, but I did drive past a house the other day where the grass was growing out of the driveway, and I was like, this is a little, this is a little interesting. And
Yeah.
that's not one that's talked about a lot. So, when do you, can you tell us like your process of when do you go driving? Like, do you have that in your process of like, oh, Mondays I'm gonna go driving, or is it just kind of like when you're out, you're out?
So sometimes when I'm out in an area that is kind of far from me, like 45 minutes away, I'll go driving for about an hour. But usually what I'll do is I'll actually schedule an entire week to go out and drive, and I'll go and pick up like 5, 6,000 properties. And every single day I pre-plan my routes on where I'm gonna go.
Oh, how do you do that?
So I have specific filters that I use in DealMachine to identify like the neighborhoods that I want to go drive. Usually like they're absentee neighborhoods. The homes are under 1,200 square feet, built before 1975, and that they've owned the home for at least 3 years or more. And if I have an entire area that highlights, I'll just pick an address, and I'll literally just build up a bunch of addresses. And what I'll do is I'll go to the first address, drive that whole neighborhood, then I'll go to the second address, drive that whole neighborhood, and I just keep it going.
Wow. Dang, that's now what would you say now with gas prices rising? What do you I've had that come up so much, people saying that. Now, what do you have to say about that when people are saying, well, it's not the because I know what I've said, but I want to hear what you said. When people say like, well, now it's not the most in it like it's not the most cost effective.
I'll be honest with you, I don't even care about the gas, and I drive a diesel F-350. So like every time I go driving for dollars for one whole day, it's like $120 in diesel. So I'll spend like literally probably $500 in diesel for the week picking up all these properties, but the return is significant. So we do about 100,000 a month consistently just off of driving for dollars. We don't do anything else.
I'm sorry. And you just told me that your second year you guys did 91, but now you're doing 100,000 a month.
Yes,
Did I get that
we
right?
tried this. Yes, that is correct.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm gonna just people are gonna hate me in this office. Oh my gosh.
So
Dan, Dan,
the second year that we were in business, we did 350,000 for the year, and it was we only did so little. I say is only because I kept experimenting. Like, okay, what works better than driving for dollars? We would pull lists and we would just do all kinds of other stuff to try to experiment. And then last year, I was like, you know what? I'm not pulling any more lists. The only list I'll pull is like a foreclosure list. That's literally the only thing. But I was like, you know what? We're just going to drive for dollars. We're only going to target driving for dollars. That way, also, our speed to the deal is a lot faster. Because, like, when pulling lists, I would say on a typical list that has about 2,000 people on it, I might be able to get like 2 to 3 deals out of it. Versus if I go driving for dollars, out of 1,000 people, I'll pull out like 10 deals, which is way better because it's my cost of marketing is way lower, my time to market is way lower, and we try to do as much as possible. Like we send about 2,500 text messages a day, 1,500 ringless voicemails, and when my guys are on the phone, they try to do about 1,000 phone calls a day.
Holy crap. It's a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
Do you do any, so you do the, the ringless voicemail, the texting, the cold calling, do you do any mail marketing as well?
We do now. We started at the beginning of the year. I actually just closed on a house. I think 2 days. No, on Tuesday, I bought a house from a lady that I've been sending mail to her for like 6 or 7 months. So we do mail now. We're at I think like 1,700 to 2,000 mailers a month. But we
Okay.
use mail kind of like as the last option because like that lady, we've been texting her and calling her for 2 years. But I didn't want to start mail until the beginning of this year because mail does add up when you start mailing a lot of people. So we'll text them, ringless voicemail, call them. We'll do it twice and then we'll mail them. And we mail them every 21 days.
Dang. Oh my gosh. Dan, it's insane just from even the last time I talked to you, where you guys are at right now. So
I know it's crazy.
how many deals do you think like unless you like know this off the top of your head, you've done with DealMachine then?
I I really don't know. I'll be honest, and I should know, but I know it's at least over 100. Because last year we did 60. I think it was like 65 deals roughly. And I know the year before that we did about 30, and this year I think we've done. I know the first quarter of this year we did like 17 deals, and then this quarter that just passed, I haven't done the numbers yet, but I'm sure we did uh, probably as much or more. I'm really not sure.
You guys are just knocking it out one after another. Now, is your team? I know you said you have guys that call. Has your team grown to like between the two of you, or are you two still the main like two?
So me and my partner are still the main heads of the whole business. So I am strictly dedicated to marketing and organizing everybody, which I'm terrible at. Sometimes organization is not my strong point. But my partner is the one that closes all the deals, makes sure that the contracts that we send out get signed, closes them on price, and makes sure that everybody goes to the closing table. So he's like kind of, I guess you could say he's in between closing coordinator slash acquisitions slash dispositions, and then my two other guys, they are they're mostly acquisitions. Like these guys will pick up stuff under contract all day long, and they're also doing the active marketing, answering text messages, making phone calls, following up with their follow ups. So I have the two other callers, and then I have a young guy who cleans all my data in the background, making sure that all my addresses are correct, and also cleaning up the text messages, people that are not the owner or not interested.
Dang, you got. I mean, you said you're not good at organizing, but that sounds like a pretty well-oiled machine.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like it's no way easy. Like I'm pulling my hair out sometimes because like we just went through an entire system redesign, and I had to train everybody how to use this system that I just built. And I was like, this is the way we have to do it because before that it was even more disorganized.
Well, you got to do what you got to do, and I totally hear you on changing systems and having to reorganize and train. Oh my goodness, processes, and then documenting these processes, and
Oh yeah.
it's it's all the things.